Welcome back everyone. After the production heck that the previous video was stuck in, it's time to get back to a relatively consistent upload schedule. And for this next series of uploads, we're going to be doing a retrospective on Samurai 7. Now Samurai 7 is oft overlooked, and my first memories of it go back to the early Toonami days, when the series was still airing in the States, and it seemed pretty cool to me. Where many series of the time were vaguely Western or cosmopolitan looking because the West was still warming up and learning of Japanese culture, Samurai 7 was undeniably Japanese. My initial memories with the series are hazy, and I never caught all of the series on air when they aired, but I knew of the general plot, and I knew that it was based off of the 3.5-hour epic, Seven Samurai. Upon rewatching the series to its conclusion, I can say that Samurai 7, while undeniably a remake or retelling of Seven Samurai, is still strong enough to stand on its own. However, since Samurai 7 is a remake of a previously told story, it is an odd piece to approach since it is simultaneously original and yet also a blatant remake or retelling of an iconic movie. That iconic movie being Seven Samurai, one of the most iconic movies of all time actually, and definitely one of the most influential. Like in the Trigun review, I will take the source material into consideration and bring it up when I feel necessary, but for the most part we'll try to focus on the series itself in a vacuum. This is not to discredit the source material, but instead to push the series out from under its shadows. I feel that these shadows, and a similar but not identical title, are perhaps one of the reasons Samurai 7 is still somewhat obscure, as remaking one of the most influential movies ever made is a daunting task even in the best of cases. Comparisons to the source material will thus be used when I feel needed, but comparing the series to the movie will not necessarily be the point of this retrospective, outside of perhaps a video dedicated strictly to that. Instead, the aim here is to see what makes the series good, regardless of whether or not that originates from the source material itself or from within Samurai 7's retelling of it, and also to look at why Samurai 7 is a great, obscure anime memory. With that out of the way, let's start as we always do, by exploring the plot of Samurai 7 and seeing what happens. Samurai 7 opens up in the remote Kana village, where the villagers tremble in fear of having their crop taken from them again by the unjust bandits. Now the bandits are former samurai who have lost their way, their honor, and oftentimes even their bodies since the ending of the Great War. Now, all they really do is go about demanding tribute from defenseless farmers. Finally, having had enough of this, the village elder resolves to finally free the village from the bandits by hiring samurai to fight them off. In order to obtain the services of the samurai, the village sends out peasant Rikichi, the water priestess / shrine maiden Kiara, and Kiara's younger sister Kamachi to the city to recruit them. These three eventually make it to the big city, where they go about recruiting the Seven Samurai and just trying to avoid trouble. They first meet the inexperienced Katsushiro, who resolves to help them as it is the just thing to do, and as a samurai, he must do this. Now, it is shown from the start that he's quite inexperienced and naive, but throughout the series he grows to become a competent and more grounded warrior. They also befriend the loud Kikuchiyo, who is a mechanical samurai also looking to make a name for himself. Eventually they run into the older Kanbei, who initially refuses to join the team out of a sense of loss and disconnect. He is quite a jaded man after all. As time passes though, Kiara catches the attention of Yukio, son of a local magistrate, who then kidnaps her. This sees Kanbei end up rescuing her, and joining the team next to the young Katsushiro and the brash Kikuchiyo. In the end, they all finally resolve to recruit more samurai to help protect the village. Although Kanbei doesn't consider the other samurai yet, he does allow them to tag along, and begrudgingly accepts Katsushiro as a student of sorts, and even acknowledges them as samurai eventually. As the group continues to try and recruit more samurai and avoid Yukio, they run into and recruit the veteran samurai Gorobe, a friendly mechanically mined Heihachi, and Kanbei also has a close fight with samurai Guzyo, who happens to work for the local magistrate. With this decent team assembled, the group is then forced to flee as the city performs anti-samurai sweeps because they are of the belief that a samurai has killed the local envoy to the emperor. This sees the group flee to the village of healing, where Kanbei recruits his old friend Shichiyoroji, and then they flee further to a hidden village in a cave guarded by the mysterious Shikimori. It is here that Kanbei learns of the women kidnapped by the emperor and resolves to rescue them once the work in the village is all done. First though, the group must save the village, and along the way they are attacked by city forces, including Guzyo. Seeing someone who finally respects him as a warrior and a person though, Guzyo decides to betray his comrades and defect to join the now Seven Samurai, and one day duel Kanbei to the death. The group then makes it to the village, where they fortify it and train the farmers to fight. They even survive an attempt by one of the villagers, Gonzo, to betray them and rally the villagers to the struggle, as it is now too late to back down. This pays off, and in the final battle, the village successfully repels the bandits, though at the cost of Gorobe's life. This battle also sees Katsushiro take his first life, and eventually kind of pull the plug on his and Kiara's will-they-won't-they relationship, which kind of flickers on and off throughout the series. Having won the battle, the samurai stay in the village, with the exception of Kanbei, who goes out to rescue the women, and Kuzyo, who kind of just does his own thing. I would also like to note here that this is where the plot of the original movie kind of ends, and the next arc is mostly original to the anime adaptation, of course with many homages and references to the movie. To get to the Emperor, Kanbei confesses to killing the Imperial Envoy, something he didn't actually do, and this gets him an audience before the Emperor in the capital, a massive floating battleship. He almost succeeds in killing the Emperor too, though is instead captured and slated to be executed. This is delayed though when Yukio, having usurped his father, demands an audience with the Emperor. This is granted, and the Emperor recognizes him as a clone of himself, and forces him to undergo the test of inquiry to see if he will be a worthy successor. Ukyo passes, and is thus named Crown Prince. He then takes advantage of this, and kills the Emperor to gain control of the Empire. From here, he goes on a charm offensive, seeking to consolidate power by playing everyone against each other, and hoisting himself above it all as a kind of benevolent overlord. He had already done something similar to this in the city, by seeking to win over the unemployed samurai and the peasants by employing these samurai to fend off bandit attacks on villages at the expense of the bandits, kind of modeling the defenses after what Kanbei had done for Kana village. In a show of goodwill, he even releases the captive women and pardons Kanbei, as Katsushiro, Kikuchiyo, and Kiara try to rescue him. Ukyo's charms succeed to an extent with the people, although our samurai are still very weary of him, and this is validated when Ukyo decides to destroy Kana village as a show of force. Before this attack can commence though, Katsushiro has a falling out with the group as he feels betrayed that Kanbei did not take him on his quest to free the women. He feels left out and belittled and heads off to the village to do his own thing, while Kanbei, Kiara, Kikuchiyo, and the captives rest in the village of healing. It is in this village where the remaining non-Katsushiro samurai rejoin the group and agree that the Emperor must be stopped. As they pursue the capital, they leave the women behind and charge straight for it. Meanwhile, Katsushiro has arrived in Kana and leads the defense of the village before the onslaught of the capital. The other 5 sneak aboard the capital and take it out to save the village. The samurai of course win, though at the cost of Hayachi, Kuzyo, and Kikuchiyo's life, who all die in the fight to stop and eventually kill the Emperor. As the battle ends and some time passes, the village is better than ever, and Kanbei gives Katsushiro his sword as a measure of both respect and accepting him as a full-fledged samurai. He then tells the village elder to live a good life, and laments that even though the farmers, quote, won, it is still another losing battle added to his name, as no victory can ever wash away the loss of oneself and one's friends. While this ending is a bit somber, I feel it is for the best. While Samurai 7 is a slightly more lighthearted adaptation of the original, complete with some goofy anime moments, it never loses focus on the important messages present. In fact, I was surprised with how poignant it could be at times. Many scenes spoke to me much more than I thought they would have, like when Rikichi gathers up his stolen rice in episode 1, or when Hayachi sacrifices himself to take out the capital. Many scenes can and do hit close to home, and they're all examples of a serious core bleeding through a polished animated exterior. Samurai 7 is fascinating for this reason, as it retains much of the emotional, social, and philosophical depth/commentary of the original, questioning mature themes, like can any death be honorable, and can combat be glorious, or is it just a necessity sometimes, all inside an extended and animated medium. This is strengthened by the ending, because retaining the grounded ending of the original is a great piece of connective tissue binding the series to the source material, and the themes to the viewers. Therefore, while the plot of Samurai 7 is pretty straightforward, I see no issue with this, as I consider it a beautiful exploration of humanity. Samurai 7 is neither a character nor a concept story, but instead a story which uses the differing actions, attitudes, and fates of its characters to dissect the human experience, especially when it comes to concerning themes of warfare, honor, and loss. While none of the characters are the deepest, many of them are still often quite developed, or at least fleshed out enough and unique enough to stand on their own. This allows us to open up to them on an emotional level and experience their humanity and learn from them. And this is the beauty of both the original movie and this retelling of it. Regardless of how futuristic or antiquated the gripping setting is, or how awesome the original soundtrack is, or how cool the fight scenes are, Samurai 7 is an exploration of the human condition. And that's why I love it. While the series does have its nuances and complexities and own quirks, its simple messages and tones, which shift between lighthearted to intense to somber reflection, display to us a wide range of emotions we will all experience at some point. For this reason, it's a great exploration of our psyche, and leads us to question both ourselves and the world and society around us. It's an exploration of humanity, and many of its aspects. It tells us to treasure the lives we live, and the lives of those around us, because life itself can be quite fragile. No matter who wins at the end of the day, living in it of itself is something of a reward. It is a great example of a story being human above all else, and being used to express humanity above anything else. And for that reason, it is also a great, obscure anime memory.